Hello, everybody. I am glad to welcome our colleagues and students from Germany, from Bayreuth University, who together with our Ukrainian students realize project on distributed game development. Last time we had a very interesting workshop devoted to environment development in Unreal Engine 5. We considered location in open space, and today we are going to continue and move inside the interiors. And today, Oleksandr, lead VFX designer, will not only tell us about difficulties associated with this topic, but also show us the whole process in practice and share his experience. I would like also to say thank you, our director Natalia Pribytkova, who make consultation for our project and support our project as well. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Oleksandr. And let's start our workshop.
Yes, hello everyone. Glad to see you back. And first of all, I'd like to make a little recap of what we have managed to do on the last workshop. So it was a exterior scene where we modeled our terrain, shaped it, painted with blended materials, also added vegetation and talked a little about foliage tool and what instancing is. Also set the basic lighting and made a simple blueprint that allowed us to rotate our sun position. Now, today we will continue to work on this scene, and we will add the little interior cave, and we'll also make the lighting setup for the interior and a couple of blueprints that will allow you to use some logical elements in your own project. So it will be a door that will open with the keyboard command. And close as well. So this is our cave that we will make in the final, and also a usable interactable lighting. Okay. So last time we had a lot of work to do. This time it's going to be a bit less practice, but I will explain a bit more theory, especially about the interior lighting. Okay, so let's go to our level that we made on the workshop. And let's start. Now, before the interior, I'd like to introduce some of the features that will enhance your picture. Like previously, we made the fog that added us this cool sense of depth and this sun rays effect. And today we will add a component called post-processing volume. So to do it, we go to the Place Actors tab, to Volumes tab, and find post-processing volume. Where is it? Post-process volume, here it is. Now, post-processing is basically modifying a final image of all the scene that was rendered. So the way rendering works is first our CPU gathers all the information about the objects on the scene, it combines it in a table that sends that table to a GPU that renders all the objects and all the lighting and shadow information to basically a single texture, this dynamic texture called render target. And when this texture is rendered, we can modify it pretty much the way you work with any picture in, let's say, Photoshop. So if we want to, let's say, do our shadows a bit cooler, give them a little bit blue tint, we don't have to go to the settings of our lighting. We can just modify the final image of the shadow, not the shadow itself. So this will give you an idea of what post-processing is. And it's a very powerful tool to enhance the final image. However, I strongly recommend you to use it after you already set your lighting on your scene, because all the post-processing, although it can drastically change the sense of a scene, it can actually make it better in terms of readability. It's a good practice to make the basic setup with lighting and shadow first, and add post processes like a cherry on top. So in this case, we will use. So here's our post process actor, and it has a lot of settings. Like for example, this is a volume. So the volume works the way the player have to, or rather the camera have to be inside this volume, so for it to work. However, in case of post-process volumes, we have so we don't have to make the volume stretch it to the size of the whole level. We have a setting called unbound. So we go to details tab, just type unbound and make it active. What this does is basically makes this volume infinitely large. On the real level, well, we actually will use two post-process volumes, and one of them, which contributes to the outdoor scene, will be unbound, and the other one for the interior, it will be strictly made for the size of the interior. Let's go to its details, and just so you see what it does. Let's try the bloom. Bloom is basically this blurred effect around lights that mimics the dust or fog in the atmosphere. It makes the lights smoother and more artistic. So you can see the effect when I increase the bloom. You see this glowing effect around the sun. We will increase a little bit the bloom. And also one of the effects, post-process effects that will greatly enhance the picture is depth of field. And it's basically blurring the objects that are far away from us. Well, in the extreme case, you see what it's doing. So right now it blurred all the image because the focal distance of this lens, of this depth of field effect is really close to our camera. However, we can we can see what it's doing and just stop the distance. I believe the distance in meters, in centimeters actually, from the camera where the blue ring starts. So let's have like 5 meters, and you already can see that like tree top of this pine tree, it's sharp, and the tops of pine trees that are farther away, they're blurred. This enhances the sense of depth of a scene. It has like countless settings for the changing the picture. It's really worth playing with it and just see what this effect's doing. Like chromatic aberration, for example, it mimics the refraction of light passing through the lens of a camera, so it breaks the image to a blue and a red wavelength. So it's not very realistic, obviously, but it can have a strong artistic effect if you need it for some scenes, right? And let's make the other one. We just copy the post-process we have here. Where is it? Oh, let's drag a new one. No, because we don't know the size that it should be. Let's do our interior first. Now, a bit of a theory about interior, creating an interior. There are 4 main approaches of creating interior. So first one is modular architecture. What it means is we have a pieces of architecture that are that has strict size, and they are snapped together seamlessly. So, for example, we have a wall with a door in it. We have also a wall with a window in it, and to utilize modular architecture, we have to enable a snapping to grid, so all the objects are lined up properly. To make it, we activate grid here in the upper corner, and because we previously placed this object on the scene without the grid, we have to snap it back to grid. Okay, so right click on the object, go to snapping and snap to grid. It will move it a little bit. And also to this one, snap to grid. And as you can see, their size is 4 by 3 meters. And because we have our grid to 50 centimeters, they snap like perfectly and seamlessly. And this way, like we have a wall. There we go. This way we can make the interior like date at 90 degrees and add a little more objects. And this is the way actually most architecture is built in games. So the pros of this method is it's quick iteration, because you can have multiple walls with different windows, and we can just snap them together and reorganize them. So it's basically a constructor-like approach. But the cons are it requires a persistent matrix, so all the architectural pieces should be a certain size, and it is easy to make if they are linear and boxy. But if you want a building that a bit more organic looking, and it's not just a box that grows up, it might be tricky to do modules that will snap. Like if for example, we have a big room that's pretty much square, and we have a smaller room that goes to the side. It might be tricky to like mate them together. So, well, because the sections for the second room should be smaller, but they have to snap to the same grid. You know, it has some limitations. And the final result may look repetitive because, well, we can't have infinitely large amount of windows and doors. So at some point, if we have a couple of buildings standing nearby, we may see the reuse of some of the modules. Second approach would be the unique model. So the whole building or the whole room of the interior is modeled in some 3D software, and it is not supposed to be reused. So it's modeled to a particular size and particular place where it will be used. This way, this is the most artistic approach because it can contain not only straight walls or straight ceiling. It can be like transformed, like rotated, in case, like for example, a half-ruined house or the house that has some strong overgrowth around it, and the like a big tree that affected the way house stands, it will like tilt it to the side. It almost impossible to make with modular architecture, and these pieces should be built like uniquely. Now, next approaches are a bit more well, harder to understand. So the first one is displacement material, the way it works. So I'm not sure whether I'm sharing my screen of an engine or my like actual monitor. So do you see the ArtStation page?
I see
Or you still
you.
see?
Yep, it's ArtStation.
That's ArtStation, okay. So this is the approach that utilizes just the very basic geometry of an interior, and with the help of very advanced material that can manipulate the vertices of the geometry, it transforms it to like a real interior. So on this slides, you can see the initial geometry is just plain white room, even with no stairs on the floor and just simple columns. But the it's just a material based, and it's a procedural material that like extrudes some of the parts of the geometry. It shades them. It gives them color and some material properties, like it might be metal, it might be I don't know, leather, whatever. And yeah, so all of this is done only by material. The software that is used for this called Substance Designer. Now, this is a very good approach for the open world games where you have the like randomly generated caves, for example, or rooms that should not be repetitive. So you just can generate some boxes and place these materials, and these materials are heavily customizable. So we can have the parameter for, let's say, we have windows on the walls that are built with the material, and we can manipulate the amount of windows. Like in one room we want two, in another room we want 5, and it's all supported. Like another example is this. So this is the basic mesh. Sorry. Yeah. So it's just basically a pipe. So a pipe for a cave. There's no detail on the model itself at all. However, it has a high density mesh, so it has a lot of polygons to be able to like extrude and make details on the material side. And this is the final result. So you can see like the bones sticking out of the walls, and all the distortion, all the shiny parts, all done with the material. This approach, although it's very versatile, it requires very skilled material artists, and the like entry level for this approach is pretty high. And the last one would be fully procedural interiors. It has the highest entry level, so in displacement material approach, we only manipulated the geometry with the material, and in procedural approach, we model the whole interior by some set of rules that we establish earlier. And like the type of this approach is used only in games where like one of the main features of the game, like for example, Ubisoft games called what was it? Division. It's called Division. About the post-apocalyptic city, where all the interiors that are in buildings, all the buildings, they are built procedurally. So they had just the like map, like from the top view map of a city, where they marked the like street. This is the road. This is where the buildings should be, and just with almost basic shapes drawn from top view, and the in engine they built the whole city around this simple map. But as I said, the entry level for this approach is like the highest. It requires a lot of preparation, like years of work just before it even can work at all. So in our case, we will use the modular architecture approach. And first of all, we have to decide where do we want our cave to be. Now, the drawback of having a cave instead of just a regular building is the fact that our terrain geometry is actually one-sided. So it cannot be a ceiling. As you can see, it is transparent if we look at it from below, right? So if we will make the just the entrance to the cave and we fly in, all we will see is like vegetation, and we need to actually model the ceiling for the cave. Although I will show you a trick how to do it easily. But first of all, we have to go to our landscape material and make it the masked material, so we can cut out the mask for our entrance. And we pick landscape and go to its details, go to material. So in this case, it's a material instance. Go to the parent material. You see in material instance, in its details, scroll just down and you see parent material. This is like the main shader that's used. I already done it here. However, you need to add the node, right click on the material editor and type landscape visibility mask. You add this node here and you plug it in, just drag from this pin to the opacity mask output of the material and press apply and save. And also you have to change the material domain to the left, like the details of this parent material. Blend mode masked. By default, it is opaque. So we change to masked, and while we change it to masked, the opacity mask output will become available. Apply and save. And now if we go to the landscape modeling tool, you can see the visibility tool down here. This is the mode where we had like sculpt and smooth to shape our material landscape. Sorry. So now if we pick the visibility tool and with the same brush, if we click on the terrain, let it calculate. Like we made a hole in terrain, and it's not only transparent to the view, it also doesn't have the collision, so we can go through it. Oh, like that. Now it's big. Make it smaller. Like that. All right. So we'll fit in. Now, second part, I'd like this cave to have some sort of opening, like a window, so we can see the sunlight coming through. Because otherwise it would be too dark. And like we see where our sun is by the cast shadows. And if we make the little opening somewhere here, it will give us, like we can see it now, or we will see it when we add the actual interior to our cave. But let's have it here first. And if you like to change this visibility patch, this opening, again, you add it with left click and remove it with shift left click. Okay. Now back to our selection mode and let's plan our interior. As with the exterior, it is better to plan the interior depending on what feeling we want to introduce. So we have to scale the interior around the player character. So let's take our floor. Where is it? It is. And we will start on the outside, so it would be easier for us to measure everything, and we will then just like place it down to our cave and build it from there. So right now this floor is 4 meters by 4 meters, and if we if we imagine that it is the interior, it's obviously too small. I'd like it to be at least longer. So we either can scale the floor or add another section, and let's do it twice as long. So we will just add the section. Snap to grid. Or actually, I can copy this one with Alt. So it snaps. Right, so. So I like the length. However, I'd like it to be a bit wider, like 1.5 times. So we will scale it. Like this. Again, with all the scaling that I've explained on the previous workshop, it is okay to scale up to 2 times. And the difference when we will texture apply the material to our architecture, these pieces, the detailization of the material might be noticeable if we will stretch them a bit too far. But this will do. Now let's add some walls. And for that, we will use this one, 4 meters by 2 meters tall. Then snap it. Now, it's a bit too low. So I'd like it to be a bit taller, maybe 1.5 times taller. So pick all the walls and scale it up by 1.5. All right. So this is the base shape, the base size of our interior, and I'd like to talk about a little about the interior scale and how it affects actually the sense of the place and the mood that the player would like player to feel. Okay, so the rule of thumb of the overall scale of the object, especially for interiors, are if you want, even when you do the realistic looking game, you can alter the size of the elements a bit. So scale it up or scale it down just a little bit, and it will affect the feeling of a scene. And the rule of thumb is for the cozy, warming, welcoming feel of the interior, you scale micro objects, which means objects that are below human size, like the furniture, like the cups on the table, this kind of stuff. You scale those micro objects a bit up. Well, depending on the setting, if you have the realistic game, it the 10% scale, 10 or 15% scale would be enough. And you scale the macro things like the walls, so the objects that are bigger than human. Walls, the height of a ceiling, you scale it down. So you like shrinking the interior around the player. All the little objects goes up closer to us, and all the bigger objects scale down. And I'd like to show you the beautiful example of this approach. Where is it? Here you go. In the game called Uncharted 4. So this is a scene where our main character goes back to his home, and he goes to his old room on the rooftop, where he had all the like artifacts that he gathered through his career. And this is very nostalgic scene for him. He goes through this room and picks this object, and he memorizes his adventures. And the way this room is scaled is exactly what I'm talking about. So first of all, it's not the boxy room, it's under the roof. So the roof itself is triangular. Okay, there's some little mini game where he had a little toy pistol, and as you can see, all the objects, even though he's a grown man, and this looks like it has the atmosphere of pretty much a child's room. All the objects are a bit bigger, so he can hide just behind two boxes, like the bookshelf. It's very chunky. It's like it has puffy form to it. Like the whole lighting is very warm, and because it's under the roof, so the seating line is actually lower than it would be in the normal room. And this is a very good example of a level design where it has to like exaggerate the feeling that player should feel. So it has a lot of small elements here and there, like small reminders of his past, you know. Like these objects on the shelf, they're big and chunky. Here, where he stands near these bottles of whatever. You see how big they are? If you compare them to his hands, they are much bigger than in real life. Although it's a bit stylized game, it's not cartoony, so it's like stylized but realistic. And for the it also can be used for the opposite. So if we want a room where the player will feel like depressing, the anxious feeling, even belittling the player, so it like the player will feel the pressure on him. We do the opposite, so we scale macro up. We change the proportions of the walls and the ceiling higher up. So if we have a room, like for example, we can even take our room and scale all the walls up, and we spawn here, and we go inside. See, it already, we can't even see the ceiling. It already feels like I don't know, some maybe administrative building or the place where everything like above you, and you're small and weak. And again, depending on your style, the actual percentage of a scale may vary. So in realistic games, like even more realistic than iCharted that I showed, it's like 10 to 15%. If you have a cartoony game, highly stylized, it's like 30%. So I've seen beautiful examples of interiors of very stylized games where the like living room for a character had a furniture and the like cups and plates on the table, and the actual cup was almost the human size, so the person can fit in, but the overall mood was very cozy and interesting. Also, I'd like to notice that if you're using the photo reference for your location, whether it's outdoor or indoor, you have to find photos where with the human person standing there, and I'll show you why. So this is a photo of some waterfall in a jungle, and it has a good composition. It's bright. It has like cool watercolor, and but it's really hard to understand the scale of this place because we can see the vegetation that's closer to us and has like really big leaves. However, we see that this is the ordinary vegetation, so there's not some exotic stuff with huge leaves. So it's like we're standing really close to it, and it appears, or it feels like this waterfall is like a couple of meters away from us because of the perspective. And so this waterfall might be like 5 meters tall, maybe, if it's like around 5 meters away from us. However, this photo actually has person. I just photoshopped it over, and this is the side of the actual person. So because the way the perspective of this photo is shown, we don't see the depths of this waterfall, and it's actually at like 20 meters tall. And if we hadn't had a person standing there and we tried to make this scene in our engine, it wouldn't work because the proportions are off. So always find the point of perspective and the something that you can measure the proportions around. So the human person is just like the best way to measure proportions and size. Okay, let's go back to our interior. So now let's just pick all the objects, and because we are already snapped them together, we don't need the snap to grid already. We can just manipulate them all together, and we will place them like that, and just move it on the ground. Yeah. If we can jump in and see what it looks like. Okay. Yeah. So I like the scale of the interior. Obviously, we don't have the ceiling, and we don't see where the door is. And also, I'd like this opening for a window a bit in a different place. So I'd like it to be on the back wall of our cave. Like that. And at this point, we can manipulate our terrain a little bit, so the terrain would be a bit more appropriate for the cave we're building. So let's make this wall more vertical. Also, don't worry about stuff that comes through. Like in our case, it's really crude and it sticks a little too much. However, if you will make it by your own, and you'll have the places where it sticks just a little bit, you always can just adjust the terrain over, so it will hide the geometry underneath. And don't worry about the vegetation. Vegetation actually, it's like whenever we change the terrain, vegetation changes with it. So we can see if we, for example, go under this grass, the grass. At first, it floats in the air, but then it snaps back to the terrain. So it's not a problem. Like this little stuff we can cover with the terrain itself. The bigger pieces we can cover with the static objects that we will place later. Now, it might be a bit tedious job to fix all these things, because there will be like spots where the sun comes through, and we won't like fiddle it too much. But I want to show you the main approach and the main idea. And let's correct our window here. Oh, we already can see where the sun will come through. All right. So, because our terrain has irregular shape, it's almost impossible to make the ceiling out of modules, because it will just stick outside, and the difference is too big. Like we can hide these pieces of wall with some objects. However, it would be problematic to hide the whole ceiling under the terrain. But there's a cool way to make the ceiling of an interior using the foliage tool. And to do that, as the foliage brushes, we just add the rocks that we've been using earlier on the previous workshop that we placed just like a single object. However, we can use them as the vegetation tool as well. So let's go to foliage mode. Let's find our rocks models. We need small rocks, like a couple of them that are pretty similar in size, like that. And just drag it into the foliage tool. Now there we can use them as our brush. So right now, if you paint with our rocks, they appear obviously on the surface. However, we can offset the placing of these items by a vegetation tool down. So we have we're choosing the rocks objects in the foliage, go to their details, and we have the placement tab and Z offset, which means like vertical offset. And if we type -40 centimeters offset, so we offset them down, and we will paint our vegetation. They are actually placed underneath the terrain, and we even won't see them sticking. And they are placed like 40 centimeters below. So the like the depth, it's actually the perfect depth for us to cover this ceiling. And again, this approach will make sure this. So it's not the individual objects; they are instanced objects. So it doesn't matter that much that we will have a lot of them to cover all our ceiling. To make sure we have as little spaces between them as possible, we will have to adjust our density of their placement to cover almost the entire ceiling. And it's easier to do first on the surface itself, and then we just offset them down. So we will see the adjustments we are making. So right now we can clearly see all the spaces between them, or we can adjust, and we have the paint density set to 1, so it's maximum density from as a paint brush, like as a tool. However, we can adjust the density of individual objects. Again, we choose all the rocks that we are painting with and adjust its density in their details to something like 150. Not enough. We actually can make them a little bigger, so they like stick together better. Well, as you can see, there's almost no spaces at all. You can check it by just applying underneath. We can see we will always have some spacing because the placing is randomized. However, we will fix it with individual objects that we will put there. So this density is suitable for us. It will make the like whole ceiling of the cave. Now to first we adjust the depths of set, and let's go to a mode called wireframe, like visual mode, where we can see not the materials, but only the geometry of the objects. It would be easier to control where our room ends. So we can see we're painting with our rocks. We have to cover as much as possible. And by the way, the vegetation is not placed where the terrain has the invisibility mask cut out. So we are not afraid of blocking our door. However, it did block the window a little bit, but I think we can adjust the size of it a bit later, or can actually make the window itself a bit bigger. And in case these rocks are picking out through the terrain, it's actually okay, because we might need to add some individual objects here and there, but in the end it will look pretty organic, so it's fine. Yeah. Some rocks. Yeah. So we can have a little more light coming through. And as you can see, we have a ceiling on our cave. Let's see how it looks like. It's okay. It might have been a little bit taller. However, we can place our floor and our walls a bit down. Let's do that. Them up. That. Yeah, that's better. So we have some places without these rocks that we painted here and there. Let's add. Oh, by the way, there's also a setting. As you can see, I can't paint the rocks, like place these rocks on the vertical hill, on the vertical side. So it's placing them. See, I'm clicking, but it doesn't work. That's because there is a setting in the like object setting for the foliage, which is called ground slope angle. And it means that these vegetation objects cannot be placed on the slope bigger than 45 degrees. So let's increase it to 90. And now we can add them to vertical surfaces. So we can paint around our door. We almost don't have any spaces between the rocks, which is good, because it's a pretty tedious work to cover them up. Oh, forgot to add the back wall. So let's just what I'm doing is I picked the wall that already there, picked the rotation tool, and with Alt and rotating, I make a copy of this wall and rotate it already. And we need to place it the way it won't obscure our window, our cutout. So in this case, because it's on the ground, we can just move this wall to the side, so we don't have to like scale it, mask it, and just move it. It's not even picking through the ground. Yeah. And this part will just cover with some big rocks. Actually, we can start doing that already. So let's go to our bigger rocks. And again, it might look a bit odd that the wall is sticking out of the rock. However, when we add the material and we might add some little rocks sticking as well, it will look like organic, that it actually could happen. So someone could have built the walls around the rocks. Right. And again, we won't make it perfect. I just want you to get the idea of how it's done. Because this process might be a bit time consuming. Or here we go. Now let's add some materials to our walls and the floor and see how it looks like. Now, all right. It already looks like something. Now we might adjust the placement of the sun a little bit, so we will have this cool light coming in with the so now these light shapes, they're elements of the composition by themselves, and I'd like to show you some of the concept arts. Like here, for example, this is the artist that worked on Uncharted 4, and as you can see, the environment is pretty simple, so there's not much detail going on. However, the lighting shapes that he painted are the compositional element, actually. So it's not just the tool to highlight some elements like, well, it is used here to highlight the walls of a castle or these ruins to give them this volume. However, the lighting shape on the ground, it actually works as the contrasting element to the character, to the hill that character standing on, and it gives the depth of a scene and the whole shape of the lighting. So you can see this is the slope of a hill that goes downwards. However, it's not lit like all the way to the top. So the lighting shape is like covered probably by some clouds or anything, and it's done this way specifically to help the composition with these cool shapes that sloping down. So we have a hill, the dark side of a hill, and the light side of a hill that slopes down. So whenever you're making an interior scene with that has windows in it and it's sunlit, so it's there's sun coming through the window or through the door, you have to think about what the shape of this sunlight is it a good looking shape where it's pointing at? You might want to place some object of interest here or anything. So we will adjust our placing of a sum a bit later. And right now, let's just place a little bit more individual rocks to cover this sticking parts of walls and make the our cave a little more blended into the surrounding. Now, whenever we do stuff like this, like modeling some rocky formations out the individual rocks, it is very tempting to place these objects like because of their material. Yeah, they have some randomness in it. It's very tempting to place them like that if you need the particular shape for rocks or for rocky formation. You can rotate them like that. However, even though they look like they have random texture on them, it's a bad idea to rotate them like in a way that that changes their orientation. Okay, I'll try to explain it here. So again, it's the example from Uncharted. It's one of the best games that utilizes these principles in the environment. As you can see, wait, let me check these. Oh, there we go. As you can see, these rocky formations, they are made. Some of them are big objects, some of them are made from individual objects. However, you can see the overall structure of their texture. They have these vertical lines, like in some geological formation, right? And no matter which way you look in, you will never see these rocks rotated to like 90-degree angle. Even the volcano at the back, it also has these vertical lines in it, as every other rock, and they specifically maintain this this image to make sure this this whole island, this whole rock formation look natural, because in reality that's how it like looks like really. These minerals they form mostly in vertical form. Well, not vertical form, but they are stretched through big distances, so it's impossible to have like one rocky formation that has this vertical structure, and next to it the another formation that has the horizontal structure. It looks really unnatural and odd. And even though these rocks don't have this very distinctive like direction of their like mineral structure, they have well, as you can see, these dark parts, they are mostly horizontal, you see. So this one is like a bit bigger and it's horizontal. These are smaller and then it's horizontal. On this side, well, on this side it's actually a bit different. So if you place these objects like side by side, and one of these objects have the horizontal structure, and you tilt this one, it will already look unnatural, because not only because like we can see that it's a repetitive element. Oh, here you see. So we have this one's horizontal, this one's vertical. Well, it's better to just use another asset or rotate it around its axis. This way it will look more organic and natural. Now we will just cover up this seam where we have the cutout on our terrain and the empty space between our seating that we built from the rocks. So it's just most of the time, a couple of individual stones will do the job. Scale them a little bit so we don't have to place too many of them. And these rocks I'm rotating all over the place because they don't have particular this pattern of their structure. Although in this case, you see they look a little bit repetitive because you can see there are three individual same looking rocks that placed together. So it's better to use a different model. Okay, let's see how it looks like from the outside. Well, right now it's clearly the round hole in the ground. However, if we place like similar rocks on the side, right, make a little composition out of them, and we have this big rock sticking out, we can actually place it a little higher, and it will look much more believable. Okay. There you go. That's how it looks like from the inside. Let's quickly make same thing for our entrance. This can just cover this huge rock. It won't go inside our cave, and it will actually help us with the overall look of the exterior. And same here. Now, If it looks odd that this only one giant rock sticking out of the ground, just add some smaller ones. Probably this one, it looks similar, has similar material. Now, we won't cover everything just now because we have to place our door first, and then like fill the gap between the door and the hillside. Okay, so let's do some blueprint of a door now. As with the blueprint that rotated our sun, let's go to our content browser folder of our choice. Right click, create blueprint class, make it an actor. Let's call it door blueprint. And we should add component called static mesh. Just type static mesh. The name doesn't really matter. And we will place the door object. Where is it? Oops. To be able, you don't have to drag and drop objects all the time. If you want to like place the object, right now we need to assign the static mesh to our blueprint, so we just highlight it in our content browser, go to our blueprint, there's an overlay of zoom, there you go, and we pick our static mesh component. We go to the details tab of the static mesh component, and we can see the static mesh object that should be assigned to this component. And if we click this arrow button, well, the tooltip just says use selected asset, the one we highlighted earlier from the content browser, and just assigns it to this component. And you can do this with the objects on a level as well. So I highlighted the rock. Okay. If I go to the content browser, pick another rock model, highlight it, go back to the details tab of the rock placed on a scene, and replace it with the arrow button. Sometimes it is easier than find the window you're in, drag that object there, or type its name. And we also need the static mesh of our door frame. So let's another static mesh. Let's choose our door frame. Go and assign. Now, because the door has to like open, close around its pivot point, it's pivot actually to the side of the door where the hinge will be logically. So right now they are offset, and all we have to do is just move one of the objects to the side, I know the exact size of the door, so I will move. It's 2.5 meters in diameter, so we'll move it 125 meters. Okay. Now, to be able to control the door, we will add the box component, box collision, which gives us the ability to interact with this blueprint, like with our player. So whenever our player goes inside this box, something might happen. We can interact in some way. So let's make it bigger. Like that. And go to event graph, check the collision box component, go to its details and add 2 events, the overlap events. So begin overlap and end overlap. I will remind you that this means the begin overlap event will trigger whenever the player comes into the box, and end overlap whenever it goes out. Now, with the blueprint that rotated our sun, we made our interaction directly on the overlapping with the box. However, this time, because we will have several objects in our interior, several interactive objects, I'd like to use a keyboard controls to interact with them. So we won't have the unnecessary interaction if we don't want to, if we just go and pass the object. So to do that, there's a function, right click on the event graph, function called input enable input. Okay, so we can type enable input. And what it does, now the blueprint, when it will be placed on the scene, it doesn't know anything about your controls like mouse and keyboard. And because it's these controls are suited for the player character. Okay, so to be able to interact with this blueprint, so to be able for him to like listen to commands from our inputs, we have to enable them first. So we take our function enable input, and it requires the player controller of the input that will be used. And in our case, it's called like player controller. It has to be specified in case we have not one player, like in a multiplayer game, for example. You have to specify which player you have to listen to. So if we type player controller, we have the function called get player controller, and it works by picking the player by its index, and we as a local player always are index 0, even if in multiplayer game our own keyboard and mouse and player will always be at index 0. So in this case, we just use the input of a player 0. And when we come into this trigger box, we enable input. When we come out, we disable input with similar function. And we also connect our player controller. Now, in Blueprint, let's find type keyboard, and we have these all the keyboard events like for all the buttons on our keyboard, and we just, let's look for E, for example, for interaction. Because we enable input, now we can place any logic to the event that will happen when we press the key E on our keyboard. And first, there's a function called flip-flop, which means on the first activation of this function, the output A will trigger. On the second activation, the input B will happen. So we don't have to use different buttons to control the same thing. In our case, we want to open the door and close the door, both with our E control from the keyboard. And to do that, we actually let's save a little time and go to our work blueprint of our sun, because we have the timeline that smoothly rotated our sun around the axis, and actually all the functions, this with the angle of rotation and set the rotation itself, we can just reuse it to open and close the door. So we just copy paste these functions to our blueprint. Although we have to go to timeline and make sure the angle at which we'll rotate our door. So in case of the sun, it was 180 degrees. Door needs to be rotated to 90 degrees. So when we first activate our function, it will rotate forward, like from 0 to 90. And when we use this function again, it will do the reverse. Okay, so input B goes into reverse, so it rotates from 90 degrees to 0. And the target of a rotation should be our door, which is, okay, let's name it. Let's be door. It would be door frame. Let's save. Drag our door, connect it, compile and save. Now, if we place our blueprint to our scene, place it where we want it to be. So you can see this trigger box around the door, which will give us ability to interact with the door. And let's try it out. So we come close, I press E on the keyboard, and the door opens. Can I come in? Something blocking us. And it closes. Let's check what this was. Why couldn't we come through? And I believe we have to adjust the collision of a door frame. Now, despite door frame, the model itself has the like opening in it, so it's just a ring. Yeah, the collision of it is actually like a whole cylinder, like a whole circle, and that's why we can't go through, because visibly it's empty. However, the collision is there, because the collision utilizes much simpler geometry than the object itself. Okay, so to adjust that, we choose our door frame component. We go to its details in our blueprint. We go to its details, find the collision tab and collision preset. And on collision preset, we actually disable collision by picking no collision from drop-down menu, because on the door frame, we actually don't need a collision at all. We need it only on a door. Whoops. Out of memory. It would be funny if it didn't save. We have our blueprint. That's good already. Oh, okay. So, you see it because it crashed. It reverted some of the changes we've made. Yeah. So all the rocks we placed here are gone. Well, thankfully we have our blueprint still there. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's check the blueprint settings for the collision. Dot frame. Collision, no collision, yeah. Let's see. So it opens and we can come through and we can close it from the inside. Okay. Of course, we have all the sun going through. Now we have our door. Let's now set the lighting of the interior a little. So first of all, we need remember when we made the post-process volume for the outdoors. Let's make the one for our interior. It's called volume. Process volume. Now to get the correct size of our interior, what we can do is a little trick. We just take our floor and with Alt, I will move it up. So we'll copy our floor and move it upwards. So we have our shape and our size of our room. And this way we can like place the post-process volume above it, make it the correct size, and then just drop it down. It's much easier than trying to do it underground. Okay. So for the interiors, the size of these volumes should be as close as possible to the real thing, because if you have a building with several rooms and they are like next to each other, you have to make sure those volumes are not intersecting between the rooms. And for this volume to be able to work, instead of the volume for the environment, we have to set the priority index. So we go into the details tab of our interior volume, find the post-process volume settings. We have a priority, and the higher priority, the more priority it has. So the priority default is 0, so the 1 will work over the 0 whenever we come inside. And this volume is not infinite, so it's limited by its shape, by its size. Let's just drop down. the floor, like that. So it's a good trick to measure our interior spaces. Just drag it outside, make the object that you want, and just place it back. Now, the post process that I'd like to set for the interior is the eye adaptation. Now, a little bit of theory of how lighting works and what are the tricks to make the correct lighting in video games. Now, the biggest issue with lighting in engine is the brightness of a sun in the game. It's not obviously as bright as the sun in real life. So in real life, the brightness of a sun compared to the most brightest light source, man-made artificial light source, is like several magnitudes apart. It's like 10 to the power of 4, I believe. So in real life, with the when the light is high enough and the scene is well lit, it's almost impossible to see any lighting from the artificial lights, like a flashlight or like street lights on the street. If they are turned on during daytime, you can see any effect at all. You will see the light bulb itself gets brighter, but it doesn't affect the surroundings just because the sun is much more brighter than the light we are turning on. However, in games, they are not as different. And if we place a light on a scene, like a spotlight, for example, you can see that spotlight is like, I don't know, maybe meter above the ground, maybe 2. And you see it actually lights the ground, the well-lit ground by the sun itself. And in reality, it's just impossible. This case is impossible. And this is the trickiest part of setting the lighting in games when you have both sunlight and artificial lights in one place. So, for example, in our interior, we have this opening window where we have the light coming through. And even though it's just a small portion of a whole sun lighting up the room, in reality, it is enough to light up the room so you can see everything there. There won't be shadowed areas. However, if we place this spotlight inside our interior, you can see how bright it is. Even if we compare it, put it really closely to the sunlight, and we look at it, you can see that the light from the spotlight is as bright as the sunlight itself, and it greatly ruins the sense of lighting, the sense of depth of a scene, because this stuff works subconsciously. Everyone notices that something wrong with the light. There's a reason why we have the lighting artist as the profession in our industry. This is the work they actually do all the time. Just placing the lights and making sure the balance of their light and the shadows that are they're casting are as close to reality as possible. So in this case, these are like default settings, and in most cases, default settings of the light object that we placed. And in most cases, these default settings are pretty realistic. However, in cases like we have here, when we have the sunlight right next to the artificial light, we need to adjust them and to make them look more realistic. So let's go to the details of this spotlight. And first of all, there's, by default, it would be like that. So it's light tab, light settings. We scroll a little bit down, we have the advanced tab. And there's a checkbox called inverse squared follow. This is basically the physically correct way of lighting diminishing with the distance from the light source, okay? So the farther away it's from the light source, the surface from the light source, the less it is lit. And this dependency is physically accurate with inverse squared follow. However, it's in case like in our case, when we have to balance this spotlight against the sun, so we need to make it less bright. Sure, we can adjust the brightness of the light source itself. So even right now it's too bright. Well, in reality, it might at best look like this. So you will have just a little hint of lighting on the wall compared to the sun. However, because we are using inverse square follow, we cannot see any lighting information on the floor itself. Now, I know it's close to reality. However, we'd like to make we need to make artistic decisions, right? And there's no point of placing a spotlight on the wall that shines just on a tiny bit of wall. We need to see the result of its lighting on the floor. So let's turn off the inverse square follow and increase. We actually can adjust the exponent. So as you can see, the higher the number, the more lighting diminishes with the distance. So let's decrease this number and pick the value that we want. So right now the light, we can see the lighting from the spotlight. However, it's not nearly as bright as the sunlight, and we also have the lighting information on the plot. So let's use these settings. And I'd like to change the way this whole room is lit up, because it's basically an underground, and we have like a small opening for the sunlight to come in. It would be better to make it darker, and the way it's getting lighter actually. So if you go outside, you might see the difference. Whenever we just go into our interior, you can see at first the interior is darker and it gets brighter. well, I'll try to exaggerate this. Change this. Oh, yeah, see? So whenever we're outside and we go in, there's less lighting inside than out. So this feature called after exposure supposed to mimic the behavior of our eye pupils that will adjust to the lighting situation around us. However, in this case, I don't like how bright it becomes in the end. So we might adjust in the post-process volume that we placed inside, we might adjust the exposure setting, turning this value of called EV100. Now, I won't go into the details of how does it work, but it basically means that how much brighter the dark areas become with time, like this, our eyes adapt to the darkness. So if we make this setting a bit higher, yeah, we can see the level to which it will adjust our brightness of our sea. So I want it to be still, so to feel it like, so we're underground and we don't have the same lighting situation as outside. We can leave it as it is. So let's try it out with our player. The changes are not as big as I'd like them to be. Yeah, you see, whenever we just came into the interior, it was darker and it becomes lighter after. Okay. So now let's make these spotlights that were placed into an interactive object. So again, create blueprint actor called spotlight BP. Save. And as a component, we just add spotlight. To make it prettier, you can add a static mesh of a light itself. Where is it? Props, lamp, and adjust to our static mesh component. But I'd like it to shine down. Okay. Spotlight also turn it down. And whenever you place in the lights like this with a static mesh of a lamp, make sure the source of your light source is not intersecting with the object itself, because it will shadow it up. Okay, it has to be like on an empty space of this mesh. Increase the cone. And let's use same settings we set for this spotlight that we have on the level already. So we turn off the inverse square fall off, and turn down the exponent to 2. It was the brightness 0.1. Let's see how it works. Null. And this one. No, actually, when these are on different sides of the room, we might actually make the spotlight a bit brighter. This, yeah, so we can see the effect. Okay. Now, to make it interactable, we'll do the same as with the door blueprint and add the box collision component. Let's add both overlap events, and for the input function, we just copy the functions from the door blueprint. Do the same thing for the light. Just size. And let's just copy the same input E, and to make the light turn on and off, we drag it from the component list and find the visibility function. It's called set visibility. So on the first use, we check the new visibility as true. This is the visibility we will set. And on the second one, with the same spotlight, we check it false. And the default state for the spotlight should be turned off as well, because our first input will set it on. And let's try it out. Change our pulse outdoor. And by pressing E, I can control the light. If we go out, we don't have a control anymore, so we can't turn on and off the light. You have to come closer. Now, I'd like to mention that these blueprints that we are making here, the way we are making here is purely my I want you to show how easy it is, because basically all these functions is just a visual interface for us to use. Behind these functions, there is a C++ code that just gives us the direct ability to use it. However, in real game, all these things, these interactive blueprints, they are not made this way. Okay, so in real projects, all this structure is based on the same structure as C++ in terms of object-oriented programming. So you will have to make functions. You will have to inherit the behavior between parent and child actors. So, for example, both door and spotlight blueprints, they are both interactable objects. So it would be a good way to make the empty parent objects that just gives us the ability to interact with any object that can be based on this parent. And then we will make the child objects based on this parent interactive object that we will call door blueprint and spotlight blueprint and whatever, and they will utilize the same functionality of the parent. Now, however, it's not necessarily to be that way on small projects that you will do on your own. And this simple stuff gives you the ability, without knowing any programming language, to do some logical elements and interactable elements really quickly. As you can see, it's basically a couple of functions, and all you have to do is just know what you're doing in terms of if you want to set some property of an object, you have to define what object this is. In this case, it's a spotlight, right? So the Unreal Engine have the comprehensive what's called context sensitivity, which means whenever you have the object on your event graph and you want to find functions to interact with this, not interact, but manipulate these objects in any way, the Unreal will help you and find only functions that appropriate for this kind of object. So it's really worth trying. Blueprints are used in the industry all the time by pretty much by everyone, no matter are you an artist or an animator or a game designer. We all use blueprints in Unreal Engine. However, the complex structure of blueprints, like the player abilities, let's say it's weapons, maybe some magical abilities that require not just some basic input and basic actions like rotating or changing the position, but they need to apply damage on an enemy. They have to know who enemy and who's friendly. And in this case, all these blueprints are made by technical designers, and this is a profession of its own. So it's has its own guidelines on how all this stuff works. However, I really encourage you to try it out, at least for simple stuff like we're doing here. Sadly, because of my engine has crashed, we will stop at this point. So we won't cover up all these holes for our interior. I hope you got the idea of how it's done. I hope you especially got the idea of how important and how tricky it might be to set the lighting up. Probably I'd like to make a workshop of its own about the lighting and the importance of the performance measuring of lighting and how this stuff works, to dive a little deeper into this topic, because the lighting is one of the most important things in gaming, especially in level design, let's say, because if you have the beautifully made models and very intricate materials, very highly detailed, and you place them on a scene with bad lighting, it's basically a ruined job, because bad lighting won't show all the depths, all the interest in the models and materials that have been done. And on the other hand, you can have the simple scene with almost plain white material and simple boxes that like stuck on each other, but with a beautiful lighting, beautifully set with this light shafts from the sun and the shadows and the way all this lighting is balanced. It will look great by its own, and you don't have to use like some high quality models and materials to be that way. Lighting really, it can either make or break the scene in terms of readability. So I highly encourage you to to try it, to analyze. If you're using photo references, for example, try and analyze like what lighting are you seeing? Do you have a fully lit scene, sunny lit scene? Do you have artificial lights on the photo? Do you see the actual lighting information from those lights? Are they doing something or not? And yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Now, you will receive the link to this project with both this level that we made today and the level that I showed you earlier, that I've prepared earlier. So all the stuff that we hadn't able to complete on this level, you will find it on that level, and you can see how it's done. So thank you for listening. I hope it was interesting. If you have any questions, please welcome. I will gladly answer all of them.
Alexander, thank you. Thank you for such interesting workshop. Also, I would like to say thank you everyone for their attention. Also, please keep an eye on our new activities in our international project. I see what camera is turned it off. We will return it back. Okay, I also sent result of this workshop. It will be recording of the broadcast project in Unreal Engine itself, and as well as presentation and video of the result itself. If it will be possible, Alexander?
What?
I mean, result of our project. Will we provide Unreal project as a result of current
Yeah,
workshop?
sure. Yeah. I will
Thank
build the
you.
link
Thank you,
for
Alexander,
this
and thank you,
project. I will
everybody.
upload it.
Okay. Bye. See you on our next activities. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Have a nice evening.
Thank
Nice
you.
evening. Bye.
It was interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.